It's Tuesday night. It's 9 o'clock here on the East Coast. So you know what that means. It's time for the Check Swing Podcast. Welcome back, y'all. Welcome back to the show. We had a week off where we had to regroup and refile and redo. Actually, I had an engagement, so I had to go to that, and I didn't get home till probably about 9. So anyway, but welcome back, y'all. We appreciate y'all for always hanging with us, man. We love y'all for loving us and all that good stuff. Of course, I am Justin J. Chris, wherever you might know me from. Jay Watson Radio Man, and go ahead and follow Neutrals Radio. And of course, over there is the star of the show, the beauty and the brains of the show, my man Coach Santa. What's going on, man?
Greetings, tidings, blessings to all.
Greetings, Earth. Yo, do you remember that song? Remember what was it? It was Space Jam, the original Space Jam. Do you remember like the big song? It was I forgot who. I think Method Man was in it. It was a rap song, but the song started as "Greetings, Earthlings. It is now time to take over your radio." And then the beat drops.
Wasn't that because Marvin the Martian was on there, right?
On Def Jam, that's Def Jam. on Space Jam.
Was that where that was?
I think Marvin the Martian might have been in Space Jam, in the original Space Jam. Actually, was he in the new one? I don't know. I only watched the new one time. But I do believe he was in the original Space Jam. If you know, hit us up. Let us know if Marvin Martian was in the original Space Jam. We would be interested in knowing. That number down there, 669-275-0323, or you could just comment or text us. Hit us up. Let us know. Was Marvin the Martian in the original Space Jam? I'm almost sure he was, because I feel like his spaceship was stolen. I do. I think his spaceship was stolen. In one of them Jones, his spaceship was stolen. I know it.
We're gonna find a way to correlate this to sports as well.
Somebody stole my space modulator. I couldn't get it all out.
You sound just like him.
I used to love doing that. Somebody stole my space modulator. I can't get it out today. I think I need some water. But this is the Check Swing Podcast, y'all. Welcome back. We got some things we want to talk about today, some exciting stuff in the world of sports, especially baseball right now. This is a great time of year, and one of those, it's not an Olympic year, but it's like an Olympic year for baseball, right? Because baseball is not in the Olympics. Wait a minute, did they bring baseball back?
Nope.
Okay, baseball is not in the Olympics anymore, and so we have the World Baseball Classic, which is great. Like if you want to watch some good baseball, watch the World Baseball Classic. It puts country versus country, and we'll be talking about that in a little bit during the show. I'm excited for the World Baseball Classic every year. You can watch baseball almost around the clock because there's games going on all the time. I'm trying to hold back a sneeze right now. It's kind of crazy. And we're going to be talking about some Phillies stuff too, because the Phillies are, preseason is in full swing. I actually watched some of the game on Saturday on my lunch break, and I believe they were playing the Pirates. And the Phillies were in this 2 innings I got to watch. They were hitting the cover off the ball in this 1-2 innings. Then the pitcher came out with an injury.
Was that the game that Painter pitched? Because I know he has they said he had some arm fatigue.
Well, it wasn't. No, it wasn't the Phillies pitcher came out with it. It was the Pirates pitcher at the time came out with an injury after he was getting rocked. So actually, I think Alec Boehm hit a home run off of him. Might have been like a 2-run home run off of him. They were hitting the ball.
I think we had that situation happen to one of our guys once. He said my arm hurts, but that was after he gave up a double, triple, and 2 wild pitches.
You know what? I usually don't do this, right?
Oh boy!
But I'm going to keep it as vague as possible. We kind of had a situation like that today in practice, where we were hitting the ball, hitting ground balls, and like you mess up 5 push-ups. And this one kid, I think he had messed up a couple times, and I think he got tired of doing push-ups, so he started saying this. He started saying he hurt his ankle. Right, so he's limping. And you know how you could look at a limp and be like, really? So he was limping. I was like, well, go see Ange. And And me not thinking at the time, instead of saying, "Well, what happened to your ankle?" and then to figure out what he says, I said, "What happened? Did you roll it?" I said, "Did you roll it, or did the ball hit it?" And he said he rolled it. I didn't see him roll it. That's usually something that you spot. I didn't see him roll it, but he went down. I think he got some ice. I don't think.
He sold it.
Yeah, he tried to sell it, and he came back. He got some ice. Was sitting down on some ice. 5-10 minutes later, he's back in line. Really? 5-10 minutes later, he's back in line doing this thing. So when you're coaching youngest, man, it gets funny, it gets interesting, man. There's never a dull moment, and we talk about coaching all the time on this show, but yeah. Actually, Miguel, I was just on the phone with my mom about an hour ago, and she asked about how you were doing down there with like baseball and stuff like that. So I tried to give her a good answer, but how are you doing in the Baltimore and the Maryland area in the DMV with baseball? Like, how are you enjoying it, and how's it going? It's been 2 years now.
2 years, yeah. This will be the start of my second year in Baltimore. I love it for the simple fact that there's a lot of rivalries. Especially since the season opened last week. So a couple of my favorite players, my personal favorite players are catchers, of course. And I think one goes to like Old Mill, another one goes to like Northwestern, another one goes to like DeMatha. And it's just interesting hearing the chatter because we all practice together in the off season. And then right around like a week before the season starts, then they're like, "Oh, here goes, instead of Old Mill, it's like Old Shill," and like they start like cracking on each other and stuff like that. Only for them to come back in the summertime, and then we work out together again. But it's been great. Just the connections that I've made, the connection that we made about a month or two ago with Mitchell Marlins, and a lot of places in the area. Baseball is definitely alive down here in the DMV, and so much so that I'm last year I started doing lessons and whatnot. Now I'm up to about maybe 7-8 clients, and I'd say half are like between 8 and 9, and then I have a couple of teenagers. I had one kid who my oldest guy, who got actually cut from his team as a senior. So I think he was actually deciding on going to either Maryland Eastern Shore, or Southern University in Baton Rouge. But I think he's actually going to Old Dominion.
Oh, okay.
So he wants to do that, and he wants to walk on. So I'll be training him during the off season, during the summer. But it's been great. It's still it's expensive down here. So the lesson
you down there with all the governments and whatnot.
Yeah, but
all the governmentals.
The biggest thing that I realized, like, Philly doesn't know how to collect nothing. They collect here.
Well, I'll tell you what, the Philly know how to collect the taxes out of my check every doggone couple of weeks. They collect that.
Right. But what the Philly doesn't know how to
collect other stuff. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
I've gotten 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 10 flash tickets. They don't play with the cameras down here. Like,
no, they don't. They don't.
You are so right. Over 2 miles, and it's all over the city. It's not any place, but it's like it's all over.
So man, wow, a little over 10 years ago now. At this point, I used to go to DC every Friday and work on a TV show in DC, and at the time they were doing construction on 95 from like White Marsh, like it was a long line of construction where they were creating that HOV lane or whatever
Yeah.
they call it, may call it in Maryland. And that entire time they had a truck out there with a camera that you go past it too fast, boom, they got you.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to the point, so I knew exactly when to start looking for that camera because I was out every week. So I guess people that did every day probably knew exactly. But I figured out that, and I guess they were being nice, but I figured out that they maybe a half of a quarter mile, maybe a quarter mile up the road, they would put one of them signs that show you how fast you're going.
Yeah.
And then they would have the camera a little bit, maybe about, a quarter mile down the road.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, all right, I know what's coming. And sometimes they would switch sides of the road. Sometimes they put it a little further, a little earlier, but you always knew when to look for it. So luckily for me, I never got caught up with that because that's so angering. Like you're chilling, you're at home, all of a sudden in the mail, you're like, damn, I got a ticket for
And
what?
But here's how they do it, right? You know how the school stops, right? So there's one section about like 2 blocks away. It goes, all right, 30 miles an hour. And then in the middle of the block, it changes to 25. I was like, you gotta be kidding me.
Oh.
And then they put the cameras after the 25 because they know
you're going to be going.
You're going to be going.
Move.
But I'm gonna tell you something though. I think there's such a lack of, I don't know if it's discipline or respect, but like I see cars jumping in and around, like doing 60 in those 25s and stuff like that. They're getting flashed and stuff like that, but it's like they don't care.
Yeah, they probably don't. They probably, I just paid the ticket.
And I think on North Ave, which is like 10 minutes from here, they have those bus lanes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just meow. But on North Ave, I finally witnessed 2 days in a row cops pulling people over for that, and that's so enjoying to watch. Like somebody like doing something illegal and they actually get caught.
Yeah, to see it happen, absolutely. Because there was a situation today when I was in the car and I saw somebody do. I'm like, there's never a cop around when people doing this dumb stuff. Mm-hmm. So you were talking about the speed limits, how they change. Mm-hmm. So going down to Eastern Shore, it's in Delaware. There's like 3 of these sections in Delaware where I don't know what the speed. I think it's like 55, right, on Route 13. There were 3 sections where it would go from 55 to 35.
I think I know that.
Always a cop at the end of that.
Yeah.
Always a cop at the end, waiting for you. And I remember my mother telling me, "She's like, you be careful. The speed limit changes. You be careful because there's gonna be cops down there." And you know how when you're a teenager or a young man, you always listen to your parents, but it's like you listen to some stuff and you think you got it covered with other stuff. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm so glad this is one of the things that I made sure I listened, because I guess I knew it would hurt my pockets if I didn't.
I'm just glad that Google Maps updated, and now they have that ever popular speed trap ahead.
Yeah, they got that. Yeah, because Waze was doing it first, and I think Google had Google and Waze may have a thing going on, like Mrs. Jones.
Well, Google bought Waze.
Well, there you go.
So
there you have it. So they definitely got a thing going on. And you were speaking about people getting arrested or whatever, or caught or whatever. So I'm driving to work one day last week, and I'm on Westchester Pike, and I passed by Sacred Heart School. Mm-hmm. And I'm not really paying attention, but I see there's 2 cop cars in the parking lot. Right, mm-hmm. It's a school day. 2 cop cars in the parking lot. I'm like, oh, what's going on over there? And as I look, I see this lady getting arrested by these 2 cops. At least they're attempting to arrest her. Man, these 2 cops was tussling with this lady, something crazy, man. I mean, they had her down, right? They had her down on the ground. They had her, but I feel like they just could not get her. Like, I don't know if they couldn't get the cuffs on her or what it was. They could not control this lady, man. And I mean, I'm assuming it was a lady. I really didn't see her face, but she looked like the shape of a lady. She had like purple hair and stuff.
Don't you got to be inclusive?
I get it. You got to be inclusive, but I think it was a lady. I mean, it could have been a man that is a lady. You know what I'm saying? But I think it was late. Listen, man. Listen. I'm gonna just put it out there right now. If you look like a female, I'm going to call you a female until you tell me different. If you look like a male, I'm going to call you a male.
And don't be insulted.
And don't be insulted
if I don't know the difference.
Right, because it's not like I walk around with you all day and are you just going to assume I know? No. Anyway, we supposed to be talking about.
I'll tell you something off the air that I witnessed. That was probably the most disgusting public displays I've ever seen. One of my mini light rail experiences.
Oh, geez, the light rail in Baltimore. I had a pretty disgusting display a couple weeks ago.
But if you talk about yours, I got to talk about mine.
Well, we can. You know, we got time.
Oh gosh! All right.
Want me to go first?
Go first,
and then you can decide if it's safe to talk about yours.
Go first.
I'm almost embarrassed to talk about this because it's probably like I probably could have got arrested for doing this. Honestly, I'm gonna just be honest with you.
Hold up. Statute of limitations. How long ago did it happen?
2 weeks ago. I'm sure the statute of limitations is still, so I'm not going to listen. Let me just put it this way. So I had to go to the bathroom really, really bad. Number one, really, really bad, right? And I was still at work, but I was leaving work. So I was like, all right, cool. I'll go to the local popular convenience store where they also sell gas because I needed gas. And I'll use the restroom there. Cool. I get to the gas station. I'm putting gas in the car, and I'm literally like walking back and forth, pacing back and forth, like, oh my god, I got gas. And I had to put air in my tire too. So let me put that out there. So I had to put air in my tire.
You had a lot to do with your car that day.
That's important that I had that's important to the story. So I'm like walking, like, oh my god, I got it, right. So this place is now under construction, and I didn't know this. The inside was completely closed, so I can't go inside to use the bathroom, right? So I'm like, all right, no problem. The air pump is over there in the darkness. I'm gonna go over there. It's in the darkness. I'm gonna handle my business in the darkness. I take the gas pump out my car, put it back up, hit the button for the receipt, whatever. A car pulls up into the air pump. Now I'm stuck. Okay. I'm driving. There's a grocery store across the street. I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna make it to this grocery store. Long story short, I had to let it go in the middle of the parking lot, dog. Middle of the parking lot, I had to let it go. Stood right next to my car, I had to let it go in the middle of the parking lot, dog. I did not care. I did not care. There is a family mantra that goes as follows: anywhere but my pants. So I'm in the middle of this parking lot. Thankfully, if it wasn't construction going on, then I would have been inside the bathroom. But thankfully, the store wasn't open, so there wasn't a lot of traffic in and out of that joint. So, because everybody would have seen what I was doing, it was like I had to go right then and there.
Was it? It was number one or number two?
Number one. Yeah. Oh man, if it was number two, oh man. Oh man. But I'm just, yeah. So that was my moment. Because if I didn't, I would have. And that's all I'm gonna say. Do you still feel you can share yours, or
it's along the same lines as relieving yourself. So
However, it wasn't you though.
it wasn't me. However, I remember walking to the garage, and I remember there was this gentleman that yelled out, like, "Look up! Things aren't that bad." The reason why I walk with my head down in Baltimore is because you actually have to watch to see what you're stepping in. You actually have to look at the next step, because the amount of at my rail station, the amount of bodily functions that are laid on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
It took one time, like, nope, I'm never doing that again. So I'm looking straight down for 3 blocks. Because that's how bad. Because where I get off at, there's like the street side, and then it has like a ramp for the handicap, and there's like little nooks. So it's like everybody's dinner that they finished before and after. So everything it's like a public toilet. So on this brisk Tuesday morning, about 2 weeks ago, I got off, did my normal look down, up, it's clear, my shoes are fine. So I turned the corner, I cross the street, and I see something about a block away. And let me see if I can demonstrate. I saw an image of a being with like it looked like 3 hospital sheets covered like this, right? Except he was facing this way. So this is the street, this is the building, and he was just, I don't even know if it was a he or a she because I couldn't see the face. So had 2 bed sheets. And as I got, how like you see something that's kind of embarrassing from like a block away, and you try not to look at it. That was me. I was like, I don't want to. So I was at like the intersection, getting ready to cross, and all I heard was, that's all I kept hearing. And I'm trying not to look. I'm trying not to look. So the next thing I see the 2 white sheets, and as I look up against the wall, I see the butthole of an unclean person. I saw 3 shades of color from pink to yellow to mayonnaise to mustard, and then the release. And I had to walk to the opposite side, and yeah. So I by the time I got to the end of the block, he sounded a lot better. Because from what I saw, he should have felt better. So yeah.
Wow.
All I gotta say though, I think he cleans up. That person cleaned up real nice, because when I was walking back home later in the day, I saw no evidence. So
somebody cleaned it up real nice. Put it that way.
Yeah.
So that's a lesson for the people that, if you're in Baltimore, and I love Baltimore, lovely city. Keep your head down. Look up every once in a while. Make sure you're not going to get robbed, but keep your head down. You might see what he saw. Let me just put it that way. You might see what he saw.
Yeah.
You probably don't want to see that.
No.
You probably don't want to see that. But we're going to go from Baltimore. I don't even know how to segue, but we're going to go from Baltimore to Philadelphia.
You started that.
I did. So I'm the one to blame. It's all right. As my old college coach would say, I got broad shoulders.
Right, and now sports.
Yeah, right. And now
the weather.
So we're headed back to Philadelphia now. We're coming back home. Ooh, excuse me, I didn't see that one coming. We're coming back home to Philadelphia. Like I said earlier, the preseason baseball is in full swing. How is your team faring? I have no idea, how the Phillies are faring. I've just been watching the games and turning them off late. I've never seen the end of a game unless I turned it on at the end. But we had the pitchers and catchers reported a few weeks ago, so we will talk about some of the Phillies pitching and all that because they got some new pitchers, and I'm gonna go ahead and put this up here right now since we're talking about the pitchers. Here you go, right there. These are some of the newest Phillies pitchers there. And Miguel, you're gonna have to help me with some of the names because I just don't know them by face yet. But you got Craig Kimbrell, you got is it Taijuan Walker,
Yeah, bottom right corner. Top right corner is Gregory Soto.
Greg Soto.
And I put this young kid up. He's actually from the Giants. His name, I believe, is Duarte, Junior Duarte. He's kind of a project, but he throws like 101, 102. Has
Yeah,
like
we need one of those.
he has a death-defying slider. But unfortunately, a lot of those fastballs and sliders wound up in people's hips and spines. So, but he's kind of a work in progress. But
Well,
just
that's a bit of a strategic move too because
yeah.
listen, 101 mile an hour fastball it hurts. I don't care who you are. It hurts. You may not act like it hurts, but it's gonna hurt.
And I'd love to see him pitch against the Mets because I know how they love getting hit by pitch. And then in the bottom left corner, you have, of course, Trey Turner, the big free agent. You know, off season, and I've seen some of the lineups that they've been kind of playing with. I don't think they have any choice but to have Trey Turner lead off.
It makes
Because
most sense.
it makes the most sense. The one thing that we lacked last year was speed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I am also excited too, and this has kind of like been under the radar. Phillies had an international signing of his name is Jesus Cava or Sterling Jesus Cava, a switch hitting shortstop. He's like 6'2", 6'3", and he's a switch hitter.
Mm.
Switch hitting shortstop. And I know Trey Turner has some experience in the outfield or second base. So to me, me, I'm thinking about speed, and if you got speed and power, let's put it at the top to set the table for the rest of the lineup. And I think with um, the new rules that are coming out this season, it almost seems like baseball's kind of going back to that time where you have a table setter, a
Mhm.
fast guy that can hit contact at the top of the lineup and make the game more exciting again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you know, uh, and you remind because you have a better memory than me, Miguel. But remind me, I'm pretty sure I remember that I was like against all the new rules because I'm more of a purist when it comes to baseball.
And you
When
know
we
what?
when they were originally announced, like last year or whatever it was.
I was too. I softened my stance on the clock because I'm like, it makes sense. You know what I mean?
Mm.
You just can't like sit there and just like completely. I think there was a video out. It was a game in Chicago. It was the Cubs, and I think they timed it. It took 4 minutes for the pitcher to throw a pitch.
Yeah.
Between the batter calling time a couple times, between he actually threw over the first three times. So between pitches, it took almost 4 minutes. That's nonsense. I just think that, and even my biggest thing was the shift, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this weekend, a buddy of mine was like, "Well, it's not what you think. It's actually a restriction." I'm like, "Well, that's kind of semantics, but it's actually a restriction on the infielders moving, but
Yeah.
the outfielders." I misunderstood that
Oh,
whole
you're
thing
saying like the outfielders can be wherever you
wherever
want
they
to.
went, and they
Yeah.
demonstrated that against that bum jackwagon Joey Gallo. They you saw what they did in that spring training
No,
game.
no, I didn't see this.
So what they did was the infielders shaded, stayed on their side.
Mm-hmm.
They took the center fielder and moved him to the spot where the second baseman would move, and they moved
Mm,
the left fielder to center, so there was nobody in left.
okay.
So they said that's the way around the shift restriction. You can move the outfielders however you want. So they had literally here's the outfield. You had right fielder, center fielder, and then left fielder. They all like in a triangle right here.
Mm.
Nobody in left, and everybody was like, "Well, he's not going to hit it there anyway."
Yeah, and you know, we're going to get into the rules later. So, but I do want to talk. I do want to address that. I think that's smart. You know, your infielders can't move, but you can move. They ain't say nothing about outfielders. Go ahead and move your outfielders around. And really, what you're only doing is exposing yourself to a possible, oppo hit or whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like double teaming somebody in basketball or football. You could double team somebody, and it could work out for you well, or it can burn you. You find an open man and they score. And it's really, to me, it's a thing of like, how you going to restrict the way somebody is going to play defense, like where you're going to be positioned.
Right,
You're restricting because people are not getting the base hits that they should get. Now, matter of fact, I'll address it more when when we get to it, because you know me, I can go into I hate the restrictions on the switch. I really do. On the shift, excuse me.
Well, yeah, and I think I think we do have to soften our stance a bit, only because when we look at all the other sports, like we look at, like we'll pick on football for instance. Remember late 90s, early 2000s, when you started to see kind of that shift from, you had running backs that ran 35 carries a game. Then it was the West Coast offense, short little passes. Then it was, not the running gun, but it was kind of like a spread offense. And then all of a sudden they started changing the rules on like the catch. And then all of a sudden, what is pass interference? So now it's like, games are high scoring, and offense at the end of the day is what kind of pays the bills. And I think baseball, like in every other thing they've done, whether it been race relations or whatever, usually is the last to do anything.
Oh, absolutely.
But I think out of
But
all,
let me push back on you a little bit on the football thing,
okay,
right? Because I agree with what you said for the most part. And I feel like football had to make the game more offensive due to the fact that due to the concussions that were happening, because
true,
in the 90s, 80s, 90s, people didn't really, I mean, you turned on football to watch your team, but you didn't really turn it on to watch. You want to see scores, but you turned it on to see the hits. And they've kind of eliminated that.
remember the videos that used to come out? The
Yeah.
NFL.
My dad had one. It was called, I forgot what it was called. It was like NFL. I forgot what it was called. But me and my boys, when we would go play football in the park against, cats from like across town, we would watch that video every time before we went out there.
Yep.
And be hyped up, and then we had to walk all the way out to the park. All along, and Co had to walk all the way out there. But we was hyped.
Oh, Jack.
Yeah, we was hyped up. We wanted to lay somebody out now. We wanted to do what we saw on the thing. And, and sometimes we did. We would lay people out. But so football had to do it. Right. Yeah. So I guess pushing back against my own self, I guess baseball had to do it too, to encourage more scoring. I mean, they didn't take anything out of the game except for the steroids. Right. So they had to do something to get these guys that are, I'm going to call them what I want to call them, one-dimensional hitters, and basically keep them from crying all the time, being a bunch of babies.
And I think that's what makes it so. That's what kind of makes me so angry about, because this didn't come about because of a legitimate change. It came about because, like you said, whining hitters. And also, let's put it on the table, like, gambling rules the day right now. They're getting ready to remodel one of the greatest stadiums ever in Camden Yards, and they're going to put a DraftKings section in there. So it's like, and hopefully they don't completely butcher it like they did moving the outfield wall 78 feet for no freaking reason.
What's it going to be, a sports room, a sports book?
So it's like what they did at the Garden, like what they did at the Staples Center. They kind of like renovated a section, and you can make prop bets like right there at the moment. So I don't know if they're going to put it out by the Utah Street side where the actual Camden Yards building is, and that's where
Uh,
Dempsey's is. So they might put it out there, or they might put it in a couple different sections. But you
okay.
can see how they're kind of like spacing stuff out to lay the groundwork for it. But I think it's supposed to be coming out this season because they expanded legalized gambling in Maryland. I think the same week that recreational marijuana will be fully and readily available.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
Um, quick thing, and I usually don't shout out anything that's not donating to us. Actually, I won't, but I will. I will say this: there is a place across the street from the stadium. Okay, it's a restaurant. I'm not going to put the name. I'll tell you the name later. But if you ever go to this place, and I'll tell you the name later, you got to get the Baltimore wings. Don't even worry about it.
There's like 20 places across the street that to choose from. And I haven't
No,
been to any of them.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you which one
Okay.
to go to after this. They're not paying any of our bills, so they can pay their own bills on their own. So yeah, those were the Phillies free agents. We kind of got off topic a little bit, but those are the Phillies free agents. We kind of talked a couple weeks ago about what your lineup would be. We can go through that again, but I do want to. I saw this a few weeks ago about Citizens Bank Park going to be renamed in 2028, which seems like so far away from now, but it's what 5-6 years from now, whatever the case may be, which is going to go fast. Like it was just 2020, like yesterday. Don't forget. But possible new stadium names. I'm looking at the notes you put together here so eloquently. IBM, DuPont, Yingling, Comcast, Tasty Cake, and Wawa. I found the last three very interesting. More so the last two, more so than the last three. Comcast, because Comcast, Tasty Cake, and Wawa, because they're all Philly based, right?
Right.
And actually Yingling is too. Now think about it. But Yingling and Comcast are national brands.
Right.
It just happen to be Philly based. DuPont the family's Delaware, but they're all over the place too. Tasty Cake and Wawa are strictly like Philly brand. Like Wawa, you can go to a Wawa in other states, but Philly, Wawa, Tasty Cake are hand in hand, like a cheesesteak.
Right.
Hand in hand. This area loves Tasty Cake, loves Wawa. But I don't think Tasty Cake or Wawa will get it done, to be honest. Comcast, I can see that happening.
Yeah.
I can absolutely see that one happening. IBM, I gotta be honest with you, Miguel. I kind of forgot IBM even existed. Like I really did, because there's like you hear Microsoft all the time, you hear Apple, all these other computer. The only time you really hear about IBM is when you hear about Watson, and I still to this day don't really know who Watson is. Let's just put it that way. Don't even try to explain it. Just don't know. Okay, I think he was on Jeopardy one time, so I don't know. DuPont, I can totally see that happening.
Yeah.
I can totally see that one happening. If I had to take a guess out of any of these, my ranking would be Comcast. I'm just talking about winning out, not my suggestions, but Comcast first, DuPont, then probably IBM, and then the locals fall in line. Yingling, Tasty Cake, and Wawa. I feel like Wawa is like the sentimental pick.
Just sentimental pick.
I really feel like it's the sentimental pick. Like, does Wawa have enough money to bid for a name on a stadium? Maybe, but they'll probably have to lay off some people to make that happen. I don't know, and I really don't know. I'm just spitballing here. Tasty Cake, which I actually saw a Tasty Cake commercial today for like the first time in years.
Yeah,
I saw a Tasty Cake commercial. So Where are you leaning towards in 2028?
SEPTA with the old sign, their old thing. We're getting there. No, I'm joking.
I wonder why SEPTA has never tried to. Well, nobody would know what SEPTA is outside of Philadelphia.
Right, and they just know that they go on strike every 6 years. Um,
Every 6 months.
yeah, I think Comcast would, because I'm just thinking corporate, you know. Um, but is it still called Comcast? I thought it was NBC. Didn't NBC buy Comcast, or how
No,
did that?
Comcast bought NBC. So now like Comcast owns NBC. They bought NBC. So anything that NBC does is under the Comcast name. Actually, part of Comcast's new logo is the NBC Peacock thing, the feathers or whatever.
Oh, so name it Peacock. Welcome to the Peacock. Welcome to the cock.
Yeah, there's already a streaming service called. There's already a streaming service called Peacock. So
No, that won't work either. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I think the corporate names would kind of, and the what you call it. Baltimore did something weird. It's not, they're not trying to call it Camden Yards. It's actually called Oriole Park.
I've kind of noticed that.
Yeah, there's a big on the that there's a clock, and it just says Oriole Park. So I don't know if they're trying to kind of phase out of that. And again, I think I mentioned from the last show that there's still kind of that fear because the Ravens renewed the lease for 15 years, but the Orioles have not. And a part of it is because they just settled. There's the Angelos family who owns the Orioles had a real nasty public case where the elder Angelos is now pretty much like bedridden.
Peter Angelos.
Peter Angelos, he's like bedridden. He's like 92. So he gave one son the law firm that he was, because he was a lawyer, and then he gave the other son the team. But the son that has the law firm wants the Orioles. So long story
I don't want the law firm. I want the baseball team, Dad.
Right. So long story short, the guy with the law firm sued the guy with the Orioles for stealing money and then purchasing a bigger share of the Orioles, and allegedly, like, him and his wife conspired. It was really big, really nasty. So they finally settled out of court for undisclosed, whatever. So now the issue's up because the lease is up this year. This is their last year under the lease to be at Camden Yards. And he has not signed. And part of it is they have until, I think, July 31st to make things official and stuff. So there's time per se, but there's a real fear that he wants to sell the team or move it.
I could not imagine the Orioles being anywhere else but
Baltimore. I could not imagine it either. And it would probably be a similar situation like when the Browns moved.
Yeah.
And, they were promised that, the name would stay and stuff like that. Because it's funny because I talk to people. I have a physical therapy, and the guy that that's working with me, he was a trainer for the Orioles when they had like John Orsulak and Eddie Murray and stuff like that. And he said that he also helped out with some of the Colts when they were in Baltimore. But he says he talks to people to this day, and they still cannot watch the Ravens because it's like, no, we're the Colts, that sort of thing. So, but yeah, it's interesting, the conversation. So if he doesn't sign the lease by July 31st, they technically would not have a home. But what it is too is the city wants the city of Baltimore allowed the Orioles to play or to play downtown for like $10.
Wow.
Yeah, was it because they wanted, to make money
off. Resign that lease. I'll sign the lease.
Right. So
$10.
Well, because they realize like they never have bad crowds because like it's a national landmark. You know, it's a place to
Mhm.
visit. The stadium is still well kept. It's a beautiful stadium. Even if this was they celebrated their 30th year of opening. Um. So yeah, they want a bigger cut and like, well, damn, yeah, I would want a bigger cut too. But you know, the owners have it's like, yo, this has been a sweet deal. Why change it? You know.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we'll see what
makes sense.
happens.
Makes sense. So that's going to be something interesting that we'll have to keep an eye on, and and we'll definitely talk about that. You definitely got to keep us posted on that since you are extremely close to the situation.
Hmm.
I mean, like your office is like right there, so
Yeah,
I expect you to talk to the Angelos family and everything.
I'll work it out.
See what you find out. I
I'll
know
see if
you
they.
will.
I'll see if they can clean up the crap, the literal crap and the figurative crap around the light rail.
There you go. And then let's make it happen. All right, so we kind of mentioned it earlier. We're gonna go through it kind of quick. The rule changes for the 2023 season in baseball. One of the main rule changes one of the first rule changes we're gonna talk about, and probably one of the biggest rule changes to the game is the pitch timer.
Hmm.
And I'll just read what you have here because you created so eloquently, and you saved me from embarrassing us. So excuse me. Pitch timer, 15 seconds with bases empty, as you can see there, 20 seconds with runners on base. Hitter gets one timeout per plate appearance, must be in the batter's box with 8 seconds left. So, if as the pitcher's timer is going down, the batter has to be in the batter's box by the time there's 8 seconds left on the timer. Pitchers get 2 disengagements, pickoff attempts, and step offs per batter. Violations are a balk. I want to stop. I'm going to put a quarter in the meter right there. In my opinion, that's going to create a higher number of stolen bases. Because
Well,
if you know that rule and the pitcher has disengaged twice, you know they're not coming over.
mhm.
You know they're not. So you got to get caught by either a pitch out or by being slow.
Yeah, and I think because pitchers nowadays have been working on the slide step, and I think that's going to be a bigger part of the training in the off season because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it may force them to pitch more to contact versus trying to get the strikeout, but we'll see.
Absolutely. And as you have here, limits on pickoff attempts led to 26% increase in stolen bases in the minors. So we're going to see it. The bases are bigger too. We'll get to that in a second. Pitch timer helped reduce game length by 25 minutes in the minors in 2022. I for one, I'm like, I enjoy the game of baseball. I know, they're trying to get more people to watch the game of baseball. But when I'm at the stadium, like, I don't care how long the game goes. I'm enjoying the baseball game. But I get the whole TV thing. I get that. I was one that was not a big fan of the pitch timer. But once I saw it in action, I'm so a fan of the pitch timer now.
So there's one minor complication that I think,
Was
and
that?
that's the situation. There was a couple of games that actually ended because of a timer situation. So here's my thing: like if it's bases loaded and you're down a run, down to your last strike, and then all of a sudden, like you're down to 10 seconds, and then you step out 8 seconds. It's like then the umpire called them out because he wasn't facing the pitcher at the 8 second mark. And I'm like, how do you score that at home? You know what I mean? Do you do an upside down K with like an eye not looking at the pitcher? Like, how do you score that?
Yeah, I guess they have to have some type of new markings to, for
Well,
people that
because
score games in the book.
I've read some people suggest like you either ease up on the rule in critical situations or after a certain time. Because even in football, like for instance, you can catch the ball, go out of bounds, the clock keeps moving, but when it's 5 minutes left in each quarter, the clock stops. You know what I mean? So it's
And
like,
that was a recent rule change that I know. Um, but they also before that they also changed the rule to kind of like you have to be having forward progress for the clock to stop. So if
Right.
you're
You have
like
to actually
moving
be going
backwards, you
out
go
of
out of
bounds.
bounds. Yeah, it's
Right.
not forward
Right.
progress, whatever the case.
So yeah.
Um,
So I'm guessing they're gonna have to kind of play with this because baseball is a game. I mean, you're really teaching a whole new. You're teaching baseball with a clock when all of
mhm.
these players have played 5, 10, 15, 20 years without a clock.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be
A
it's
learning
definitely
curve.
going to be a new teaching point. You know what I mean? And I don't know at what point is is the game going to be adopted at lower levels. Not talking minors, I'm talking about college, high school, and stuff like that. Really, high school games go a couple hours, 2.5 hours, probably at the most, maybe 3 at the very most, depending on how it's going. You got two good teams playing, probably 2.5 hours, 2 hours. So it's not really. I don't think it's needed at that level, but at some point, you're going to have some kids that are good enough to get to the next level, or you got kids drafted to the MLB every single year from high school. They're
Right.
going to go from no clock to a clock. But I like the clock because it kind of gives you it gives you a different type of interest, right? So like think about when you're watching basketball and the shot clock comes up and it's like at 6 seconds, you're like, oh, you gotta get the shot off, get the shot off. When I was watching it, and it's not often that they're not going to get the pitch off, but I was watching it, I'm like, all right, well, how close to the clock is he going to get this pitch off?
Right.
And it gave me another something to look for within the game. One thing I will talk about is I saw it on like Instagram or something, and I was actually talking to my man Ardot about it yesterday, and you've probably seen it too. Max Scherzer, what he has been doing to use the clock rule to his advantage, and I had to talk about it because I didn't even know. Well, I'll just tell you. Let me talk about what happened. And you said you saw it, right? What he was doing.
I saw it, but I forgot just that quick. I know it was a big
So
hullabaloo.
here's what he was doing. He's coming from the stretch, right? And he's coming from the stretch and he's coming set. Boom. Batter calls timeout. Steps out. Scherzer does not move.
Right. Right.
Does not move. Soon as the batter comes back in, the umpire puts the ball in play, he throws it. Great strategy. Like you got to use the rule to your advantage, right? He's not doing anything illegal. So
Didn't the umpire like intervene? Because the umpire went like this.
that I'm not sure. What I saw, no, it didn't
Okay.
happen because he did it more than once.
Okay.
But there might have been another game where that did happen.
Mhm.
With that being said, they're probably going to put another amendment in for that because personally, I'll be honest with you, I did not know that. Like I thought once the time was called out, everything restarts. So I thought you would have to like restart your whole routine.
Mhm.
But technically, if you're set, which I didn't know, I was not a pitcher. Once you're set, you can throw the ball at any time.
But the other thing is too is that with the hitter, he has to be looking at the pitcher, and that was the game that I saw that ended because he
When you
literally
say looking at the pitcher, does that mean? Of course, it means in the box, but they have to be looking at the pitcher while they're in the box.
right. So what happened was the pitcher was he called time he legally, and then he came back into the box, but he was looking down like this, and then the clock went from 10 to 8. So at 8, then it went to 7, and then he looked up, and the umpire was like, "Nope, you're out."
Here's
Because
my thing.
you have to be facing the pitcher. That's when you face the pitcher. Apparently, that's when you're set. So it's like little
Here's my thing.
nuances.
Here's how I always, and I'm probably wrong, right? But here's how I always believe the game of baseball. Once you're as a batter, once you step in the box, you got to be ready. It's like being in a boxing ring. You got to protect yourself at all times. Once you step in the box, you get your 2 feet in the box. You got to be ready.
Yeah.
Whether you're looking, I didn't know that there was a rule like you have to be looking at the. I never knew that. This is actually my first time ever hearing that ever. Like I learned something today.
Well, I don't even know if that was the rule, but that was what the umpire ruled. but
that
I
he
don't know
wasn't
if that,
looking at the picture.
right, and that he wasn't set because of that.
So once you move your head to look at the picture, boom. Like, so if you look and then look back down, it's not time. Like you've looked. So I guess it's once you've looked, you can go, right?
I guess, but now we're playing with words, so it's like,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
mean, yeah, you got
these
just
the, and
something to think about.
these are the things they got to settle on.
Something to think about. One of the things that and I know that I see what time it is, but we are a podcast and we do it. We
We
make
can
our
do
own
what
time.
we want. Sorry.
Absolutely. Shift restrictions. Shift restrictions. All right, so let's talk about this real quick. Two infielders must be positioned on either side of second base when the pitch is released. So you got to have two people on each side of second base in the infield. All four infielders must have both feet within the infield when pitcher is on the rubber. I think that's kind of messed up personally. Like if you want to play back, I think you should be able to play back. But I'll finish. Shift restrictions, increased batting average, and decreased strikeouts in minors while giving players more opportunity to show off their athleticism. Which sounds like a crock of bull to me. Just that last sentence, the last part of the sentence. While giving players opportunity to show their athleticism. You know what sounds like a good opportunity to show your athleticism? To show the fact that you can hit against the shift to the other side. That's athleticism to me in baseball. That's part of it. Now, increased batting average, I can see that because now you're getting the ball through the hole in the infield, right? Decreased strikeouts. That's interesting. How does one equate the shift restrictions to decreased strikeouts?
Well, think about it. If I'm telling my guys, all right, hit the opposite way. Some guys literally don't know how to do that. Let's take an example of, I don't know, a schmuck named Joey Gallo, okay? Who has said, he simply said, the shift is terrible because I can't hit against it. That basically is what he said, and it's not fun.
So he should make less money.
Right. I mean, he'll hit his 30 home runs, but then he'll strike out 200 times and bat 190, and he's as happy as a tadpole. But when you tell somebody like that, listen, shorten up, let the ball come in the zone a little bit, and then hit the opposite way. If they're not trained to adjust, then it just messes their mechanism up, and then that's what causes the strikeouts. At least that's what I think the running theory is. But however, and I was totally against the shift myself. However, I'm
You're
glad
against the
that
shift or the shift restriction.
see, but again, a play on words. I thought that it was a ban on the shift. I now know that it was actually a shift restriction, but the restriction is restricting the infield, not the outfield. So about 2 days ago, saw a video, Joey Gallo getting ready to, get his batting average up 2 points because everybody's playing where they're supposed to be playing, blah, 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 blah. And the manager I can't remember the team that they were playing. The opposing manager had enough guts to actually run the shift in the outfield. So what he did was, instead of having three outfielders spread out, he moved his center fielder where the second base would normally play on an actual shift, and then he moved his left fielder over to center. Left center. He kind of shaded a little bit. So there was nothing in left. So you figure, okay, you don't want to hit against the shift, but we're not going to let you give up a hole in the outfield. So, you know what I mean? So now I like that. I like the fact that it's not a complete ban and that, you can still have some strategy and then, retire a schmuck dork like Joey Gallo. Prick.
Yeah, I for one I'm not a fan of the restrictions. I've told you many times. I feel like if you want to open up one side of your defense to stop another side of your defense, then you should be allowed to do that, and then you open yourself up to get beat on the other side. Which
I mean, it's like banning. So in hockey, I don't know if they actually have done this, but it's like banning the trap. So the trap was a style of defense in hockey where I think that there was always like two forwards up, but it always caused the offense to like not be able to make like a secondary pass, and it was
Mm,
considered boring because the New Jersey Devils perfected it in the late '90s, early 2000s. They won several Stanley Cups, but they were winning games like 2-1, 1-0. So they were winning, but it wasn't exciting. That's why they did things in hockey to reduce some of the fighting but increase the offense. And again, offense is what pays the bills. Offense is what
it is.
causes,
Yes.
betters to bet. If there's more
Mhm.
points or more opportunity for points, then it keeps the gambling world going. So this isn't a move just about baseball purists. It's a step in the direction of trying to maximize profit.
That's basically that's exactly what it is. Maximizing that profit, getting more eyeballs on the game, and I understand that. I understand that part of it. I just feel like, and I'm gonna tell you, I'll tell you honestly, I'm probably going to be one that's when I'm watching the game is happy that the infield shift. I'm going to call it the infield shift has been banned because it gives you more it should give you more action. So but the MLB caving to players crying because the defense is too hard to stop,
Mhm.
yo, just stop it. I think that's the reason I don't like, because they kind of cave to players crying, crybabying about it,
Mhm.
and I don't care who hears me call it. They're crybabying about it. I don't care. One of the weirder rule changes is the bases. They've created bigger bases. Okay, the bases have gone from 15 inches to 18 inches. Um, so 3 inches. They have added 3 inches to it, which, as you can see here by this diagram, it reduced the distance from first to second and second to third, both by 4.5 inches, and they reduced the distance from the plate, to first and third to the plate by 3 inches, which gives you a whole different set of bang bang plays. Right? That's kind of what they're trying to keep. They're trying to make it a safety thing, and I get that. You want to. That's really like kind of protecting your investment, and your investment being the players. But let's go ahead and read this. Bigger bases. First, second, and third base increase from 15 square feet to 18 square feet, or inches. Excuse me. Bigger bases expected to have positive impact on player safety. That's great. Distance reduced from by 3 inches from home plate to first. Okay, I said all that. Basically, I said everything you wrote here, but I just didn't read it, so I'm just reading it officially. Bigger bases reduced injury events near the bases by more than 13% in the minors in 2022. That's all well and good, but now, I mean, do we, Miguel, this is a question for you. Do we measure the distance between the bases by putting the base by measuring from the center of the base or the edge of the base? Like, where do we, when
Well,
we say 90 feet?
I would say edge of the base because if as soon as you touch the base, you're
You're
either
safe.
safe, right?
Yeah.
So you would measure it to the end of the base.
Okay. So bases are no longer 90 feet apart. They are 87 feet apart.
Well, no, it's
86.5.
so even so. I hear what you're saying. Yeah, I guess that's the premise. I think I like this. I was expecting it to be like them starting off like just first base. You know how like some leagues they have the white base and then they have the red base or the orange
You
base
do that a lot in softball, yeah.
in softball, right? But I do like it from the player safety standpoint because I know there were some players that would sometimes intentionally spike the first baseman right on the back of the Achilles and whatnot.
Mm.
Um, so when you combine that with the fact that the pitcher can only throw over twice, you hope. I don't know that you're going to see a big change in stolen bases right away for the simple fact that players have been programmed not to steal because of analytics, and they've been programmed to be that way for like the last 10 years. So I don't know if you're going to see that massive jump right away anyway, because I can't
Yeah,
think
but I
of
think you're going to see it though. Eventually, I think you will see it.
eventually. But I'm like, one of the best base stealers was I can't even think of like a really good base stealer in this decade.
No, you can't. Because the talent of speed is not as highly I get, for lack of a better term, praised the way it used to be when Ricky Henderson was stealing bases, when Jimmy Rollins and Shane Victorino when Juan Pierre was stealing bases, when not Roman Quinn, he's now what was the little center fielder that the Phillies had after that run? I can't even think of his name now, but he was fast in the Mickey Ficky. I said Mickey Ficky, y'all. I'm just putting it out there in case somebody says, "What? Oh my god!" No.
What?
Hey, Mickey Ficky. You know. So, all right. Let me. So, one of my favorite movies is House Party. Right? Probably my favorite movie is House Party. And there's a scene. I'll just go talk about this one scene in a House Party. Where they, the three guys was after Kid and I think he threw, it was in the beginning of the movie, I think he threw like a Jello cup at the dude. And he was like, yo, did this punk Mickey Ficky just throw some ish at us? Yo, I think this punk Mickey Ficky, but they weren't saying Mickey Ficky. So when I was in like school and not in elementary school, and mind you, I didn't see that movie in elementary school until it came on TV. We would walk around school and say Mickey Ficky. Like, and I'll be honest with you, at the time, I don't even think I realized what I was saying at the time. But I wasn't cussing, so there it is. But real quick, let me just go through this. I'm cool with this rule. I like this. I mean, I'm not cool with this rule, but I get the safety issue. If it encourages more stolen bases, I'm very cool with it. Because as I'm a fan of stolen bases, I'm a fan of small ball, I'm a fan of aggressive baseball. If it increases your stolen bases and your stolen base attempts, I'm all for it. Miguel?
Yeah. I part of me is like, well, if you were going to limit the amount of throws over to first base by the pitcher, why did you need to make the bases bigger? You know what I mean? Because I think it gives an offensive advantage. So I think sometimes some of these things I think are just an overcorrection. Because I think if you simply just added the clock and the restriction, I don't think you really needed to do anything else. Matter of fact, I think if you just added the clock, you may not have had to do anything else.
You're probably right. And I agree with something you said earlier. I would have been okay. I think I would have been more okay with increasing the size of first base to avoid that, getting your Achilles stepped on and all like that. I think I would have been more inclined with that change than I am with all the bases being bigger.
Right, because some of the injuries that happen, like at second base with the takeout slide, like the Chase Utley rule, like that pretty much solved itself. Slider surrender pretty much at home plate now, so that drastically reduced injuries and whatnot. So it's like, to me, most of those injuries would happen at first base.
Hey, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm trying to.
What do I know?
Well, we know we're just baseball coaches and players. Do you want to get into this World Baseball Classic? Or you want to save it for next week?
Well, it starts tonight, so we can run through it like real quick.
All right, well, let's run through it real quick. World Baseball Classic, one of my favorite things that baseball has ever come up with, aside from the stolen base. World Baseball Classic pool play begins tomorrow. Actually, probably
tonight.
Might be starting now.
There's that. I think there's a game that's going to start in an hour. I think
Pool B. So Pool A, Pool A is in Taiwan. So they probably. Yeah,
they start in an hour, I think, our time.
So I might be up late watching some baseball, fall asleep watching baseball. Sorry, babe. Well, you might be watching baseball while you're trying to fall asleep. Sorry. But you have Pool A, Chinese Taipei, Netherlands, Cuba, Italy, and Panama. Interesting pool. Chinese Taipei, also at one time known as Taiwan, I believe, at least in the Little League circles, in the circuit. Excuse me. Netherlands. Hey, Didi Gregorius, Netherlands. Cuba's always has a good team. Italy is always surprisingly pretty good. They always have a lot of Americans with Italian heritage playing for them. Panama, another South American team. Well, the only South American team in this pool. So it's interesting. Who you got coming out of that pool?
Cuba.
Putting on the spot. Cuba. You said that without any. You just knew. You said a full conviction. Cuba's coming out of this one.
Yes. Cuba.
All right. Pool B, Tokyo, Japan. You have Japan, Korea, Australia, China, and the Czech Republic. Which I didn't know the Czech Republic played baseball. Honestly,
I didn't either. I saw a movie about it. Oh, that was a Russian baseball team.
So, real quick, who you got coming out of this pool?
I'm leaning Japan, but I know there's a lot of good players that come out of Korea too. But yeah. I think I'd lean Japan.
So I'm looking at them like Japan or Korea. That's where I'm flip flopping to. Japan or Korea. Japan or Korea. I think I'm also leaning Japan. I think I'm going to pick Japan to come out of this, but watching Korean baseball during the pandemic was kind of fun too. I think of Korea,
that's right. Yeah, the Korean
league. Baseball going on during the pandemic, so I wouldn't mind seeing some more of that. Pool C, that's the one that the U.S. is in. You got the U.S., you got Mexico, Colombia, Canada, and Great Britain. Who you got coming out of this one? It's always tough because you never know what the U.S. is really going to bring to the table.
Yeah, I mean, and they're pretty loaded. I lean U.S. They're a good amount of Colombia. I think Colombia might upset though. If there's anybody that's gonna upset anybody, it would be Colombia. Because I'm just thinking of a couple Colombian players. I gotta look at the rosters, but we could probably look at that next week. But I'd probably lean towards Colombia, but we'll see.
Now, Pool D. Let me get my pick. I'm going to go ahead and go with the United States in this one, because it's the United States. I know Kyle Schwarber is going to be playing. Bryce was going to play, but of course he had to have the surgery. I'm going to go with the Americans in this pool because I think it'll be interesting to see them move on to the quarterfinals. Pool D, which is probably the most exciting pool in this entire competition. You got Puerto Rico. It's going to be played in Miami, Florida, which I find that interesting too. How come they didn't play in different countries? Anyway, you got Puerto Rico, Venezuela, the Dominican Republic, Israel, and Nicaragua. I really refrained from trying to add any accent to all of those. It almost came out every time.
Yeah, I know. I'm surprised Israel is not in Pool A and Cuba's not in Pool D. I'm trying to figure out.
Me too. I don't really get that one. That one's a little askew to me. I always look forward to seeing like Puerto Rico, Dominican, and Cuba going at it in pool play. Mm-hmm. Always. But we're not going to get that this year. So
I was actually surprised that Puerto Rico is ranked first in their pool. Because I know some players Carlos Correa pulled out, which is kind of sketchy to me.
After all the goings on with him
with the whole ankle thing, yeah, it makes me think like maybe there's some.
But maybe the rankings probably were in the beginning when they named the original rosters, and then they just kept the rankings no matter who pulled out or played or whatever case. That's just
I guess
my thinking.
But it's definitely going to be between Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic.
Yeah, isn't it always? Except for when Cuba's there. So yeah, I'm Pool D. What we got down there at the bottom? You can see March 11th through the 15th. Guess where I'll be watching? I'll be watching Pool D. Especially the Puerto Rico, the Venezuela, Dominican. If they're playing, I'm going to be watching.
You're not going to watch Chinese Taipei versus the Netherlands?
I probably will, but I'm not as excited about it.
No, I'm not. I'm not watching.
I'm excited to see Didi Gregorius play if he's on the Netherlands roster.
Yeah, I'm not watching it.
But you're a baseball guy. Like you gotta watch.
I'm not watching the Netherlands and Chinese Taipei.
The Netherlands going to win. What if I told you the Netherlands going to win? You got Didi Gregorius. You got Lars.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name, but it's like I thought he was. When I saw his name somewhere, I thought it was like fake, but it's like real. But anyway, so you got Cuba. You have Cuba coming out of A. You got who'd you have? Korea coming out of B.
Japan coming. I'll go Korea. It would be.
So you probably so you got coming 2 teams out of each pool. So I'm assuming you got Japan and Korea. Mm-hmm. Who you got? Cuba and who? Who you think is the runner up in that one?
Panama.
I like it. Okay. You got. I'm going to talk for you. Tell me if I'm wrong. United States and Colombia.
Yeah.
In that pool. Mm-hmm. And then Dominican and Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Okay. Who you got winning the whole thing?
I want it to be my people. So hopefully Puerto Rico. But I think it will be the country of the Dominican Republic.
It's very. I mean, that's it's hard to pick against them, right? When it comes to baseball. I think was the United States were the last winners of the World Baseball Classic, correct?
Don't quote me.
Because I think they were supposed to have it in like 2020, but COVID and they didn't have it, which is I believe why they have it now or something. I think. I don't think the Americans win it. I think Dominican Republic has won it before. I believe Puerto Rico has won it before, and Cuba has won it before, correct? Or not? I think Cuba's won the championship before.
United States won in 17. In 13, it was the Dominican Republic.
Mm-hmm. Then before that, I believe it was Puerto Rico.
Japan won in 09.
Oh, Japan won in 09.
They beat South Korea.
Okay.
And in 06, it was Japan, and they beat Cuba.
So Japan won back-to-back World Series Classics. Okay, I was going to say
it was Japan. Then it was yeah. I apologize. Yeah, it was back-to-back.
Japan won back-to-back World Series Classics to start the whole thing out. Puerto Rico has never won. Huh? I could have sworn Puerto Rico won. I'm picking Puerto Rico then to win the whole thing. I'm picking
they lost to the United States the last.
Yeah, I do remember that. I'm picking your people to win the whole thing. I think this is their year. I think it's their time. Puerto Rico's going to win.
Amen.
Don't quote me on it. But all right, so here you go. Here's your bracket setup. Your pool. I'm going to go on the right side first. Game 3, Pool C runner-up versus your Pool D winner. The other game is your Pool D runner-up versus Pool C winner. Pool B runner-up versus Pool A winner. Pool A runner-up versus Pool B winner. And you got your semifinals and your semis and your championship.
Yeah, and I believe it's winning percentage and it's a double elimination once you're in the quarterfinals.
I think you're right. I believe you're right. So enjoy the World Baseball Classic coming up in probably less than an hour. And I think it's time. Yes, it's time for Miguel to stump me.
Dun, 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 dun.
Rookie of the Year, Cy Young, 6-time All-Star Gold Glove. 2-time. See, there you go with that Silver Slugger again. There you go with that silver, but at least I know this time it's a pitcher because they won the Cy Young Award. Major League Player of the Year.
Yeah.
All right, so let's see. We got The Dodgers,
Yep.
Cleveland.
No.
Who's that?
That would be
So-
California.
oh, the Angels. Okay, so you got the Dodgers, the Angels, the Is that the Astros? Or is that the Orioles?
Orioles.
Dodgers. Uh, who'd you say?
Yeah.
The second one.
Dodgers, Angels.
Oh, Dodgers, Angels, Orioles, Phillies, Padres, Cleveland.
You love Cleveland, St. Louis.
That's St. Louis.
Yeah.
And the pitcher, 81 World Series. That's the Phillies won in 81, didn't they? Or is that 80?
80.
They won in 80. Who won in 81? Don't tell me.
That's how long he played.
What's how long he played?
So he played within two eras. He played like 20 some years. No, I'm lying. He played 17 years. 81 was his rookie year.
81 was his rookie year.
Mm.
Because I was going to say Tom Seaver.
Mm-mm. No, Tom Seaver won in 69.
Okay. The Dodgers, the Angels, the Orioles, the Phillies, the Padres, and the Cardinals.
Mm-hmm.
A pitcher. And it's not Bob Gibson.
Nope.
I'm trying to think of pitchers, good pitchers on these teams in history. I'm trying to think. Phillies, 33. I mean, is it Steve Carlton?
No.
Okay. Because I have no idea what number he was. And I just know he won a World Series in 80.
So the World Series was between the New York Yankees and the Los Angeles Dodgers.
What was his rookie year?
81.
Earl Horshizer.
No.
Damn. I said that with conviction.
Yes,
and I
you did.
Name wrong.
I was like, oh, he got it. I remember that look. I'm like, he got it.
I said Earl Horshizer, not Oral Horshizer.
So you were wrong twice.
I was. Wow. Dodgers, Angels, Orioles, Phillies, Padres, and Cardinals. Wow. Starting pitcher, right?
Yeah.
Oh, there was a little hesitation there.
It
So he
depends
might
on
have
what
been in relief sometime.
Right.
And it's not Charlie Huff because there's no Marlins up there and no Mets.
Right.
It's not Nolan Ryan.
Nope.
Because his rookie year was not in 81.
Right.
Oh, he was the rookie of the year in 81 and won the World Series. And it was between the Dodgers and the Yankees. And the Dodgers won in 81.
Mm-hmm.
And who were there was I think I know. Is it Fernando Valenzuela? Yes. I did not know Fernando Valenzuela played for the Angels.
I did not know that either, actually.
I did not know he played for the Cardinals.
Yeah. I remember him on the Phillies because I actually went to the game, the first game that he came to the Phillies via trade. Because I think Tommy Green, Kurt Schilling, and Ben Rivera were all on the DL for extended periods of time. So the Phillies Big Ben Rivera. So it was like they were desperate for pitching. They got Fernando Valenzuela and some other overweight pitcher named Don Robinson. And I remember Fernando pitched. It was a big crowd at the Vet. He threw 5 shutout innings and got 2 hits. And then left with a standing ovation. I was like, wow. And then everybody's like, we're going to the World Series. We're like, No, we're not going to the World
No, our team's still trash. Our team is still trash.
Yeah,
Please.
so yeah.
I do remember him with the Orioles. I absolutely remember him being on the Dodgers. But the Angels, I did not know he played for the Angels. Of course, I remember him being with the Phillies. I did not know he played for the Angels.
I think the Angels was his last stop. You know what's funny? Like I think he is like the president of Team Mexico. He looks good. Like he looks like it's almost like what happened. You remember what happened to CC Sabathia? Like all of a sudden, like he's like a bodybuilder now, and he's
like svelte.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, Mexicans usually aren't, and I can say this because they're my people, part of my people. But we tend to have some pudginess. We know how to have more fun than some people.
It's not have more fun than me.
But no, like he looks good. I gotta find a picture of him with like his felt suit, and I was like, okay, looking like he's representing.
Yeah, absolutely. Fernando Valenzuela. Wow, how come that didn't come to me first? Damn.
Well, I mean, you gotta activate that historical part of your brain. You gotta study numbers. That's what it is. You gotta study jersey numbers.
I promise you, if we were doing this show 25 years ago, I'd have got all of them immediately. Immediately.
Probably.
Except for the ones that were on like 20 years ago. Anyway, we're going to get up out of here. We appreciate y'all hanging with us here on the Check Swing Podcast for this last hour and a half. We appreciate y'all hanging with us, man. We love the fact that y'all was with us. And, if you found any value in this show, make sure you share us with your friends, man. Share the link. If you got the link, share us with your friends. If you're watching on Twitch, we appreciate you too, because a lot of things go down on Twitch. Sometimes when we play each other on in MLB The Show, we'll stream it on Twitch. So definitely, if you get the alert that you're that we're on Twitch, make sure you check us out. Make sure you say hello.
Did you say you wanted to challenge me in the game? Is that what you just said?
Not tonight.
Oh.
Not tonight. I have to work in the morning, and I'm not feeling well right now. I'm starting to feel a little under the weather.
Uh-oh.
So yeah, I'm probably going to douse myself with meds or something. I don't know. Do something. But with all that being said, we appreciate y'all hanging with us here on the Check Swing Podcast. We will talk to y'all next week right here at the same place. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and all that good stuff, and make sure you check out New Twist Radio for all of our shows. Hit the live. If you go to our YouTube channel. See, I didn't realize this before, and I should have been saying this. If you go to our YouTube channel, you go click on the live tab. YouTube has a live tab now that you just click on the tab, and you can see all the shows that we've done live. So all the Check Swing Podcast shows are there on our YouTube channel. Let's go to youtube.com/New Twist Radio and check out all the shows we've done. The New Twist, the 10-7 show, Check Swing Podcast, Intelligent Ignorance, Let's Not Argue. All the shows that we've had throughout history are on there. The New Twist Radio reunion is on. The New Twist Show reunion is on there from a couple years ago. Definitely want to check that out. Shout out to Miss West and Miss Barry and my man R. Dot. But with all that being said, we're gonna get up out of here. We appreciate y'all hanging with us. We love y'all for loving us. We'll talk to y'all next week. Peace.